Hello and welcome to Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. I'm Brenda and we're here today. We're going to start putting on borders on our flower quilt that our sunflower quilt that we've been doing. The first border we're going to do is the one directly behind me. This one actually is probably the hardest one to do out of the two different types of borders, right? Because of this shape, right? So I have a pattern listed in the show notes below for both this top border and this side border. So let's work on borders 1 and 3 and we'll get them done and cut out for you. So come on in, it'll be a little closer. Okay, this is the pattern you're going to print out. Now for this border of 1 and 3, this one is actually 4 pages long, right? 4 pages. But what you'll see here is it's page 1 of 4, and it has this match line on both the top and bottom. Well, what's going to happen is when you put this up with page 2, this white bit here is going to be cut away just like this, and you're going to be able to match up that line to tape, right? So what we're going to do is we're first off going to prepare our pattern. So this is and it didn't matter how I did this or how I wrote this. This was never going to fit in to the pattern. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to make sure our test is 1 inch. And then we're just going to start taping this pattern together. Oops, let me get this a little bit better folded. And then we can cut it out. And the same thing happens with pages 3 and 4. And then what you can do is you can line it up. So the same thing happens here with 3 and 4. And they have lines to match up, right? Just a little offset from each other. Now this is a 6-inch border. If you wanted a smaller border, because you didn't like a 6-inch, you felt it was too big for your project, you could now shorten this, right, with this. Now we're just going to line this up, make sure this matches all up good. Okay. So if you wanted a smaller border, this is 6 inches from here down, right? So if you wanted a smaller border, and let's say you only wanted a 4-inch border, this is where you would cut your 2 inches off of this pattern. And the one that's going to look like this is going to come out on the other next week. So what we're going to do now is, now that we've got all of this taped together, we're now going to tape up these matching lines, right? They're going to match up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that off camera and then cut out my pattern, and then you'll see what we're doing. Okay, here's what the pattern looks like now that it's all the lines have been matched up on our 4 sheets. And this is how this is going to come together. Now, one of the things, you're going to see this and go, there's 2 fold lines. Yes, there is. Because one line will take you to, basically the pattern flips and flops like this as you go along, right? And you'll find that with this one, more so the little one when we're doing that one next week. But what we're going to need to do now is I need to push this out just a hair. Okay. Okay, just let it drop to the floor. There we go. I decided I was going to do piano keys because I love a piano key border. Now, but one of the things, because this is a rounded edge, and I also want to miter my corners, right? So what I need to do is start 6 in, right? Because that's my width of my border. And I'm going to come here, right to about here is where I'm starting to draw. Like I start to draw mine here, so I have a little extra fudge room for my work, right? So I start here. I make sure this is all lined up at the edge, right? I don't know if you can see that. You gotta make sure it's lined up at your edge. And then what you're gonna do, you're going to take out your trusty Taylor's Quilt chalk. Okay. And you're going to start marking it from this center point, because at some point here, between here and here is where that mitered 45-degree angle is going to be. So I start my sewing from right here and across, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to trace this out just on the edge, and then I'm going to get to my first fold line, which means I flip it over, just like that. Now I'm also going to take this while I'm here, I'll line this up, and I'm going to do a 6-inch line, just to make it just a tad bigger, so I have enough room for a miter. Now we're going to do the smaller border next week, and then we're going to do the miter. So I'm going to continue on just like this, and I'm going to put this ruler down because I think it's a little heavier, and it'll keep it in place. And I just keep drawing. Now I have 2 of these. They kind of look like when they're up, when you've got them up and on the quilt, they kind of look like cat heads. Maybe it's because I'm a cat lover, maybe I subconsciously thought that it would be a good idea to have a cat head in here. So what I'm going to do is I just move this along and flip it now right here and just right below. So this is one cat head. So now I'm just going to keep going until I make my second cat head, and then I'm going to show you how I end this. Okay, so we're going to cut this now, and we're going to stay with, because the pattern was on this side and not this side, we're going to try and stay on the chalk line on this side. Now, some of you are kind of probably wondering, okay, you do 2 cat heads. Well, we'll show you on the quilt when we're done here what I'm talking about when I say 2 cat heads. Some people have not made 5 rows. So some people have made it lap size, and some people have made it queen size. So for my quilt that I've made, I'm going to need 2 cat head shapes right here, this kind of a cat head with the ears, to complete the one border. Some people have made queen size and they need 3. Some people have made lap size and they need 1. So I'm kind of an in-between. This is kind of a family cuddle under the couch in front of the fire kind of a quilt. And here we go. Now on your pattern also too, it marks out, it marks out points. And you're going to take this pattern now and mark it out, your points where your sewing points are. So if you're hand sewing, and it does come together very quickly. Again, this is not hard. You're basically sewing 3 inches at a time. Now I made a piano key, because I had lots of brown little strips I wanted to use up. And if you wanted to make it a solid piece, you're more than welcome to make it into a solid piece. I'm not saying you have to do a piano key. I like piano keys. And the quilt behind me that you see pictures of where it's completed, that quilt is only a 4-inch border. So I'm deciding to go a little size bigger just because I can. And I have lots of brown. So... but yeah, you just take your time, you try and make your points as sharp as you can. And remember, fabric's pretty forgiving. You know, don't get too crazy about precise right now, because I mean, this will fit in, this will work. I mean, when I did my one border, I thought, okay, it was a real pain to sew on, because you sew always with the side with the most seams towards you. Well, when you do a piano key border, every seam, this one is in front of you, right? So you're laying it out that way, and you're pinning it down, you know, only 3 inches at a time. Another thing, when you're sewing, don't pull, because on the piano keys, I've got this stay stitch. I don't know if you can see that line on this side, but I don't have it on this side. So when you start pulling and tugging at it, what happens is it gets, the seams start to pop a little. So you have to be very careful about handling it and supporting it. So sew with it on a table or your lap. Don't be tempted to pull it along. Okay, just about at the end. Okay, and I go down into the farthest dip. Then I come up. I also mark, because that miter is gonna happen somewhere in here when you get it onto the quilt. So I only sew up to that first dot. And this is my excess. Okay. There. So there we go. Now this looks kind of strange too. Right, here's my border, but this part looks kind of weird too. What I do is I take out the short parts here. Like I will remove this short part and then sew these two pieces together to make for the next border. So I'm not wasting all this fabric. And what I do with this is I make a 6.5 inch block, square block out of it, and I throw it into my string bin. Or like for string quilts, right? This is what I do with this piece here. So it's not going to waste. But it looks kind of odd, but you see what I mean by the cat ears? Anyways, so let's grab that quilt top and I'll show you how to get started. Okay, so here is your sewing points from the hexagon quilt, right? Like up here too, right? You see the points? I've made little balls. Now, you're gonna take your time and mark all of those onto your quilt, you know, like onto the border, so you can match them up with your quilt. Now, another way of matching this up on your quilt is this is where the cat ears sit, right? Like both sides are like, you know, wrong side up, right? And what you're gonna have here now is the cat ears are gonna sit here. And this is where this part here is that 6-inch spread. So I want to start somewhere in this area here before that first pivot. So I'm just going to move this all over to where I'm talking about. So now that miter is going to come somewhere in this area here, probably in this area here, right? When by the time you add your other border on this side. So I only want to sew, instead of sewing from here to here, I only want to sew from here to here. Because it's easier for me to match up two little Y seams to get my miter, right? This way, like when I'm coming out this way. So but I want to line it all up so that it fits. So here's where that flat bit is, right here. And I want to take this. Now, I have to sew with this side facing me because it's got the more points. And what I'm going to do is get my sewing gear out and get my little pin cushion, and I'm just going to start matching up my points. So there we go. There's one point, and here's the point. Part of the point I don't want to sew, which is okay. That's another point. And now this point where the large flower petal is, this is where I want to ease in my border and just flip that out of the way in the back and just drop my pin right where that point is. I know you can't see my points, but they're there, trust me. So now what I'm going to do, instead of starting here, I'm not going to start there, because I want to leave this open when we're doing our miters, and you'll see that on, like, next week we'll do this side border, like 2 and 4, and then we'll show you how to do miters. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this here out of the way, and I'm going to mark my spot. I'm going to mark my spot just so I get that 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start sewing from this point here, where that large petal is, to this point. Now you're going to do this the same way you sewed your rows together. You know, it's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you sew the border on? 3 inches at a time. Because this here measures 3 inches. So, and it goes together exactly the same way as your rows. Now, where's my pen? Oh, do you really want to watch me do some hand sewing here? But yeah, like it's a simple little task to do. But I know some of you are still on catch-up mode, so we're just going to do this very slowly, this last little bit. And we'll see how well we do here. Yeah. I did this all in one day. I sat one afternoon and I did the other side of this. And I'll show you this in a bit. Well, get this. We are taping this in the middle of a Canadian snowstorm. Or the aftermath of a Canadian snowstorm, which was not a lot of fun. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my first stitch. And I'm going to pop up right where that needle is. And I'm going to do my first knot. And over the front of the needle from the back, 2 hand-over knots. And then we're going to push this seam the other way and do this all over again, because this is like, work this like a blind seam, right? From the back, then to, my thread is dragging here because I forgot to put some thread conditioner on it. So we will do that right now. I use Thread Magic, and I also have used another concoction my husband and I made, and it works really well. Your thread doesn't drag as quickly. And then you go to your first seam, which is, like for me, is my piano key border. Now if you were doing this from a solid piece, you'd be sewing this from the other side because your seams are on this side, not this side, right? But if you were adventurous and you decided to go with piano key border, this is how you would do it. Anyways, so I want to show you what that other side looks like. Okay, I'm not gonna bore you to tears by watching me hand sew the rest of this, but okay. We will get to the other side here. But whatever you do, don't stretch this, because if you're doing a piano key border, these seams across here will pop because they haven't been stay stitched. So I'm going to show you the other side of this. Now, just a minute. Now, this is what this looks like when it's all done. This is what it looks like from the back. It all fits in, and because there's so many seams, it's going to push this fabric, this star, the sunflower, in, right? Which is okay, because you look at it now from the front. Now, I haven't ironed this yet. Maybe I should iron it. But all of these seams now are going, all of this is going in because there's so many seams on my piano key border. But like I say, it's, you know, it hasn't been ironed, it hasn't been, nothing's happened to it yet. So, I mean, but this is where we're at on this. And you can see here, what I've done is I've left that last little bit open here, just because I know that miter is going to come somewhere in this quadrant, and I want to be able to mark it off clearly. And we'll show you how to do that. Not next week, but the week after. Okay. So we'll show you what we mean by the cat ears on the quilt behind me. Okay, we're going to show you the cat ears as promised. See, I've got one cat ear set here and another cat ear here. But I have 5 rows. So if you've made 7 rows or 3 rows, you're going to have a different number of these to follow, right? So I am giving you all the permission in the world to change this pattern to however you like to do things and how big you want to make it or how small you want to make it. And if you want to make it just into a table runner, you could have done that too, right? So this is it was just an exercise on how to do hand piecing for a beginner on your hand piecing, but an intermediate sewing project by machine. So, but this is your cat ear, right here. And this is your circle. Now, as you see here too, this 45-degree comes in right on this triangle here, right? So that's why I'm only sewing up to this triangle and this way. And when we get to this border, I'm going to be sewing up to here and leaving this open because that's where I know that 45 is. So we're just going to have a very small little Y seam here when we're doing our miter to complete, to get this one finished, to get the thing finished. So what do you think? Let us know. We're going to put both patterns, both for 1 and 3 and 2 and 4, the borders 2 and 4, in the description. So, you know we have some people who are very anxious to finish, so let us know what you think. Okay, you have a great day, and we're so glad you came back today. Okay, have a wonderful day. Bye. Hello everyone, just a quick reminder, this is the quilt we're going to start doing our sew along in the beginning of December 2021. This is a beautiful hand-pieced, hand-quilted. This is a beginner quilt for hand quilting. This is also an intermediate if you're using a sewing machine. And we're going to start this one at the beginning of December 2021. So if you're watching this 8 years from now, don't worry, it's a free pattern. It'll always remain a free pattern. We had a lot of fun doing this with our students, and we had a very enjoyable time. So if you like the videos and you like this challenge and you'd like to start a quilt along, comment below, but like, share, and subscribe with your friends. We are so happy that you're back with us if you're a subscriber. But if you're a new subscriber, please join. This is going to be so much fun. Okay, you have a great day. Bye.